Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Movie Battleground. I am Robert the Hobbit Parker. You know me as one of the hosts here, one of the admins here on the Movie Battleground page. And boy, do we have a fight lined up for you tonight. This is going to be a two-part special Star Wars event. The hype is so real. These are 5 of the best fighters that we have, 5 of the best Star Wars minds that we've seen in these leagues. I am so excited to get started here. I'm just going to start by introducing my special guest judge today, Henry the Punisher Sanchez. How you feeling, Henry?
Pretty good. A lot of pressure to judge a big old event like this. My first time judging for Movie Battleground, but I'm going to make you all proud and get a good winner out there.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, I'm going to be your host for the match. I'll be doing all the transitions, all the actual running and wrangling of the arguments, all these kind of things. But then once the end of the round comes, I'm going to be handing it over to Henry to judge each individual question, just because it's a lot for one person to handle when we have this big of a panel and this much stuff thrown around. So I'll also be serving as your fact checker for anybody who does happen to get some facts wrong. I will be double checking them. And with that, I would just like to start off by actually shouting out a couple of our fans who ended up submitting questions. We did ask for a couple questions to be submitted, and some of them may or may not be argued today, but I'm just going to do a quick shout out. We had Jeremy Adams, Malcolm Blay, Jeremy Hastings, Ryan Permisson, Nico Rigoli, Madi Raymond, Henry Sanchez, Brooklyn Vale, and RJ Villarreal. Everybody give them a round of applause. All right, awesome. So thank you guys for sending those questions. We really appreciate all of the interaction that we had with you guys in preparing for this match. And speaking of this match, let's actually start getting into the competitors. I'm just going to throw them over real quick. We're going to start with, on my far left, Chance the Titan Ellison. How you doing tonight, Chance?
It's good, man. I'm glad I get to fight some Star Wars on this channel. It's been a while since I've been back in the Battleground, but I am back here for this epic match where I get to face a member of my admin team, Mark, someone I've never faced, Matt Beer, dear friend Tim Smith, and dear friend Chris Dohmen, who, look, I don't care if I win this thing or not. As long as I beat Dohmen, I'm good.
Alrighty, strong words coming right out the gate. And we also have with us today the Canadian Nightmare, Mark Boric, Master of Porgs. How you doing, Mark?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm glad to be debating Star Wars, one of my all-time favorite topics, with these wonderful people.
Absolutely. It's going to be a fun time. Also with us, we have a special member of the Movie Battleground admin team, Matt Beer. Matt, how's it going?
Doing pretty good. Just can't wait to get this started.
Definitely. Also with us today, we have Tim Smith. Tim, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. It's first time going into this, so we'll see how I do with a debate style for Star Wars. So, yeah, I'm ready to get started.
Sure thing. Looking forward to it, man. And also with us, we have Chris Dohmen, Chris Skywalker Dohmen. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing very well. Glad to finally make my debut on Movie Battleground here. And okay, so listen, I want to wish everybody best of luck because you're gonna need it. I mean, I host a Star Wars podcast, for God's sake, and sorry to disappoint you, Chance, but when it's you and me in the final, I'm gonna smoke you. Simple.
Oh, we'll see about that, Dylan.
All right,
we'll see about that, Chance.
Some big talkers right out the gate, guys. That's what I like to see. So just a reminder to the people watching and to the competitors ourselves today, keep in mind that Henry, as a judge, he's going to be judging both on how you support your own argument and as well as how you attack the other people's arguments. So make sure you keep that in mind. Don't just support your own argument as best you can. Make sure you're trying to attack the other people's arguments and why they're not as good as yours. That's really important. Correct. That's a very important thing that we judge on. So make sure you keep that in mind when you're fighting. All right, so in this first video, we're going to have the first of 2 rounds. We're going to start with round 1, where 3 randomly selected main game questions are going to be played. The winner of each question will earn 1 stat point and will not be playing in the remaining of the questions in that round. So in these first 2 rounds, as soon as you get a question right, as soon as you win that question, that's your free ticket on to the next round. Once 2 players are left after this first round, they're going to have a best of 3 speed round, and the winner is going to move on, and the loser is going to drop from the match. So that's how we're going to start these first 2 rounds with eliminations, just so you guys know, and the people watching at home are going to know. If anybody has any questions, let's hear them now. Hearing none, we're going to get on right away, and we are going to start with question 1 of round 1. Alrighty, question 1. If you could pick the director for episode 9, who would you pick and why? If you could pick the director for episode 9, who would you pick and why? We're going to have each of these guys go through their opening argument. There's going to be a very chaotic open forum session, and then everybody's going to have their closing arguments. Chance, we're going to start with you for an opening argument. Who is your ideal director for episode 9?
Yeah, think about this question. It's one of the hardest ones to pick for me. There are a lot of great directors I think could blend really well into a Star Wars movie. Ultimately, though, I'm going with George Miller. I think is one of the most visionary filmmakers we have working today, maybe of all time. He's someone who I think can master, and a lot of people are, I'm not one of them. A lot of people are complaining that Star Wars isn't really the best for original ideas right now. How about, if we want to fix that, you bring in a guy who made one of the most original, amazing action movies of maybe the decade in Mad Max Fury Road. So I think you bring in George Miller to do a Star Wars, he can do some crazy, imaginative, awesome things. And yeah, I think if I want to see someone close out the trilogy, I want it to be George Miller.
Alrighty, an extremely strong pick and a good argument there from Chance to start off. Mark, who is your ideal director for episode 9?
I'd probably have to go with either. Well, I'd be happy with Guillermo del Toro. Like that guy's. Granted, he needs a big budget to make an awesome movie. Like he's done it with Pacific Rim. Hellboy, everything like that. He's proven that he can actually make a fanboy's good fanboy movie for Star Wars. And he's also very original. And he's proven that just given the budget, he'll make something awesome. You got to rein in the budget a little bit, and you've got. I know he'll make a great Star Wars movie.
All right, a strong Guillermo del Toro pick. We're going to move on to Matt. Matt, who is your episode 9 director?
Look, I wanted to go with somebody who is a Star Wars fan and can also tell a great story, and it's clear that's Christopher Nolan. Now, Christopher Nolan, as far as we know, doesn't have a lot going on after Dunkirk. I'm sure he has a movie plan, but why not make it episode 9? He's going to tell a great story. He'll give us the emotion that we need for each character.
Alrighty, Christopher Nolan for sure. On to Tim. Tim, who are you picking to direct episode 9?
Compared to a lot of my other guests here for their choices, I went with someone that I thought did very well in such a big environment of Joss Whedon. Whedon, for what I know with him, he has that ability. He can do a big budget movie and be fine with it. He doesn't need that much babysitting or watching doing this big budget movie. And he has good character moments, not just from his movies, but also from TV that he has done. Good character stories. And you can easily blend that into Star Wars with all the new characters you have brought in with Rey, Finn, Poe, everyone. So Joss Whedon would be a good pick for me.
All right, a strong pick by Joss Whedon. And over to Chris. Who is your episode 9 director?
Okay, so this is a choice for me that might surprise some, but for me it makes absolutely perfect sense, and that is Jeff Nichols. Why? Episode 9 needs to be a character piece. Because we've had 2 films now in this trilogy that are big, action, awesome, amazing things. But now we need to actually get to know these characters, and we have to actually be able to identify with them so that way when we come into this final chapter, we understand their mentality of where their story is going to go if there is an eventual episode 10, 11, 12. Plus, Jeff Nichols already has a lot of experience within the sci-fi genre, as with films like Midnight Special. And that was also a sci-fi film that had a lot of character, a lot of heart, but it also had a lot of it had some comedic moments in there, which a film like this needs.
Alrighty, so definitely 5 extremely strong picks for director. This is where we're going to go into our open forum moment. I think we're going to start off with 6 minutes of open forum. That might be a little short, so we might extend it in the future rounds, but we will see. Make sure you guys, a lot of you like to talk loud, so make sure those of you who are a little bit more soft-spoken get your points in for your argument and against the others. This is where you want the bulk of your points to come in. 6 minutes, whenever the first person starts, the floor is yours.
All right, I'll speak for everyone right now when I say that Guillermo del Toro is the worst possible option for this thing, simply because of the fact that he will have what, a $500 million budget just to make this movie happen. So ergo, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, to piggyback on that point, Guillermo del Toro, he's shown that he works best when he's working with things that are his own ideas. You want him to close out a trilogy that's pretty much already written for him. I don't think it's going to work out for him. Plus, with the budget constraints, you're right. The only reason Hellboy 3 didn't happen is because he wanted a $200 million budget. Imagine what he's going to want for a Star Wars movie, which, yeah, Lucasfilm will provide, but it's still not a safe bet. I don't think Guillermo del Toro, and plus he's shown he hasn't had a passion for Star Wars.
And then let's look at Joss Whedon, for example. He's not exactly the best storyteller. We're going to want somebody who can tell a good story, have a lot of emotion. The Avengers, while it's a fun movie, isn't really that good of a story and doesn't quite hold up as much as it does in 2012. And in Age of Ultron, we've learned doesn't really do well. I'd rather see Joss Whedon do something more small and personal. But with Nolan, we've seen him make a trilogy, and we've seen his overall thing. He knows how to end the trilogy. And he's did it pretty well with the Dark Knight.
Does he?
No. With Dark Knight, he failed on so many levels. At least with Joss Whedon, you've seen, yes, maybe Avengers wasn't as character-driven as you would like, but he does have the experience of doing character-driven shows, especially good at. Granted, it didn't carry over with high budget movies, but with a Star Wars and with a team of doing a Star Wars Episode 9, it could go better. But with Nolan, he hasn't. With The Dark Knight Rises, he didn't close out that series strong. He closed it out horribly.
Yeah, that's
okay. So
but also with Joss Whedon, though,
to end the trilogy. Obviously, we saw what he did with Ultron, and it was a huge step down compared to what Avengers was. So we're going to go and assume that Episode 8's great and then get Joss Whedon and have him bring it down and just have it popcorn stuff. No, we want to feel for the characters, and Joss Whedon doesn't do that very well.
And to piggyback on that point, Joss Whedon has never done well when he's had to step in on a time constraint. You look at Age of Ultron or Justice League. He didn't have a lot of time for those movies. Episode 9 is already slated for release, so you're already giving Joss Whedon a limited amount of time. He's gonna feel rushed. He's gonna feel pressured, just like he did with Age of Ultron.
Okay, to be fair with the Justice League, that was already a mess anyways from Zack. From Zack, that was already a mess. So pretty much you could send
there was a lot of these points in that,
and they still would have been going in with a gun in their mouth. That movie was a complete mess for what they did with it.
And I think you could blame that on Snyder, not Snyder, but more on Joss Whedon, because a lot of the film was on reshoots, and that was Joss Whedon.
No, exactly. Like half that film was reshot, so it was half a Joss Whedon movie anyway. So he's already shown with that in Age of Ultron, like when he's on a time constraint, when he's got the studio breathing down his neck, which he will when he steps into a Star Wars movie. He's not gonna have a very good time making the movie. And I want to talk about Nolan real quick. You want to say Nolan knows how to tackle emotion? Dunkirk was the most emotionally void movie this entire summer. I could not tell you anything about any single character about Dunkirk. And when you're dealing with a Star Wars movie, something that's really important is dealing with the characters. Yeah. And you have to feel emotion for them. And Nolan has proven time and time again he can't do that.
Unfortunately, I gotta agree with that. With what Chance is saying there. I love Dunkirk, but there's really no character development.
There's zero character in that movie.
No character emotion.
It's about the war. It's about the environment. That wasn't supposed to be about the character, but you still care about them.
Star Wars is without a doubt about the character.
Look at Mark Rylance, for example. He's a great character in Dunkirk.
What was his name?
What was his name? What was his motivation? What did he care about? We got none of that. Which, speaking of, Star Wars is also known for great villains. What's the one thing lacking in any of the Mad Max films? A great villain. So sorry, George.
Oh, really? You want to talk about Toe Cutter or the one fucking Morton Joe from Mad Max Fury Road? Those were intimidating, badass villains.
Yeah, but what was their motivation?
Mad Max Fury Road didn't have a story. It was paper thin. So why would we want somebody whose last film was very paper thin in the plot to make Episode 9 to end it? With what we saw in Mad Max Fury Road, it's going to be very thin. It's just to the point. I don't want that. I want to feel more of a complex story. And George Miller's
story was thin, but George Miller's directing and George Miller's directing made that story feel huge. You can give anything to George Miller, and he will make it feel incredible. Like, you can give him a complex story, and he's done complex story before. Look at something like Happy Feet. Look at something like Lorenzo's Oil. Like, the dude knows how to do epic storytelling. Yeah, I said Lorenzo's Oil. Don't fucking.
No. I'm laughing about a fucking Happy Feet because no, that's not complex. Yeah. That is just convoluted. That was a mess of a film that had no idea what it was trying to do. Right?
You trying to tell a good story about environmental preservation.
Yeah, because the problem is it almost took us half the film just to get to that point. The rest of the film is just basically them doing dance numbers about a little baby penguin trying to get laid. That's what that film basically is.
But here's the thing, though. George Miller, like, a problem with a lot of your picks is that they can't step into big studio environments. George Miller can do that. You know why? Because he was already slated to do that with Justice League. He was gonna make a Justice League movie, which after seeing Mad Max Fury Road and the garbage fire that was a Justice League movie that we just got, we all wanted to see. George Miller is used to working with big studios. He's used to working in crazy, like, bombastic environments. I think he'd be great. I think he'd be a great fit for Star Wars. And also, we're getting arguments that everything's too samey same. George Miller would take this franchise in such a different, not like such a different direction, but such a different direction we haven't seen before in this trilogy or anything else before, that we're going to come at it and be like, oh wow, that was incredible.
Now, the problem is, though, George Miller didn't finish his trilogy that well, because Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is by far the worst of those films, and I will even argue it's not even that great of a film.
Yeah.
Now take a look at Jeff Nichols. The guy knows how to do an emotionally complex story with emotionally complex characters that you identify with instantaneously, and you understand everybody's motivation, everybody's perspective, and you also get why they're doing what they're doing, and it all makes perfect sense, and it's emotional, and it's amazing.
Is that what we need for a final end to a trilogy, though? Is that what we need to get into the characters?
Jeff Nichols.
We're already emotionally invested into the characters, Chris.
We don't need it for that. Also, my issue with Jeff Nichols is when you take these small, like, look at what he's done. Loving, Midnight Special, Mud. Those are all relatively small films. When you take directors who are working in, like, smaller environments and try to plug and play them into huge franchises, they usually crumble.
And time there. Gotta call time there. Time there.
Fuck.
All right. Yeah, I know. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to each of you individually to have a closing argument. This is your opportunity to wrap up, bring all of your own points supporting your arguments, and also getting those last couple points against the other people's arguments. This is your summary section. Chance, we're starting with you for closing arguments.
Okay, the thing about George Miller is the dude knows how to craft a film. Like, he's a masterwork at it. Dude's over 70 and he's still making movies like he's in his 20s. He's fantastic. I feel like, as far as, like, visuals and action go, even story and plot and characters, the dude got fantastic performances out of Nicholas Hoult, Tom Hardy, and Charlize Theron. Even the side performances are fantastic. He got a good performance out of Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, the shitty girlfriend from Transformers 3. The dude knows, and plus, like I said, he's already used to working in big studio systems, so that's not a problem for him. Guillermo del Toro, he's going to want too much money, and he's going to be putting on hold creatively. Same thing with Joss Whedon, seeing at the fact that he's not going to be shepherding this movie all the way. Christopher Nolan can't do emotion very well, so he's not going to be able to close this trilogy. Plus, he already failed at closing out one trilogy. Like, look, you said whatever he did about Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome. That was arguably good. It was arguably really good because it had great characters, had great plot moments, and great lines and all. And as far as Jeff Nichols, like I was saying before you cut me off, when you take small directors and try to plug them into big studio environments, they often crumble. Look at something like Shyamalan or Duncan Jones with Warcraft or Justin Kurzel with Assassin's Creed. I feel like you try to plug and play him in this huge universe, he's going to crumble.
Alrighty, a very strong closing from Chance there. We're going to move on to Mark for your closing argument. Get those last few points out there, Mark.
Yeah, a lot of people think that Del Toro won't work within a relatively smaller budget than what he's used to. I think he can, and I know he's really good at the sci-fi fantasy element. If he talks with the guys over at Star Wars and Disney, and they can hash out some sort of idea, I'm sure more than anything he'll make an epic, really good movie. The budget might be a little big, but it's Star Wars. It's not like they can't afford it. When it comes to Nichols, you're looking for emotional and development and all that. You don't really need to do that in the third film of Star Wars trilogy, just because like that should already be established in the first two movies. And Nolan character development, like he can do a little bit of an epic movie too, but it just like that's more of a second movie. And the same with George Miller. And you're looking for an epic with a little story development also. I think Del Toro can cover all of that if he can sit down and hash out some sort of agreement with the guys behind the scenes at Disney and Star Wars. I feel he'll make the best movie, especially for a third one.
Alrighty, good closing there from Mark. Over to Matt for your closing argument. Take it away, Matt.
Look, with George Miller, he's in his 80s. We don't know how long he's got left. Plus, with Mad Max,
He's in his 70s.
70s. Okay, sorry. He's up there though. But we don't know how much he's got left in as far as filming goes. And also, when you look at Mad Max Fury Road, there's not much story. It's very thin in plot. Yeah, the action's real good, but you want to have more than just action. You want to care about more than just that. And then you go to Joss Whedon. We saw what he did with Avengers. While it's a fun movie, there's not a lot to offer. It's definitely kind of aged a little bit since 2012, and then Ultron also just was a huge step down from what the first Avengers was. And then also going to Guillermo del Toro, his last studio film he did was Crimson Peak. And Crimson Peak wasn't a good movie. It was a very boring movie. And he's fits better in the more it's his ideas type thing. He doesn't do as well with other franchises. Look at Blade, for example. And then Jeff Nichols, like, Shank said, we've seen many directors come out, from the smaller budgets to make big budget films. We get something like a Josh Trank, where it doesn't really end real well. Yeah, he did do a good job in Midnight Special, but Loving was kind of a disappointment and was just boring all around. Maybe that's why he has been offered a movie ever since Loving came out. But with Christopher Nolan, we've seen him direct a trilogy, tell a good arc overall, do it very well. He made arguably the best comic book film ever made. He can tell stories in a complex way. He can make you care for characters. He can definitely give you the emotion. Just watch some other films he's done. He's done a very good job. He's a fan of Star Wars. That's what we need.
Alrighty, a good closing there by Matt. Over to Tim for your closing argument. Whenever you're ready, begin speaking.
I believe for episode 9, since it would be your closing of a saga, Josh Whedon would fit in there very perfectly. You don't have to come in and really have to take on a lot of heavy pressure. You're closing out your trilogy. Everything's pretty much set in motion as it is. And a lot of crap goes with Justice League and Age of Ultron. I can get Age of Ultron, but Justice League, it was a crap fest altogether. With Miller, I believe he's too old, and maybe that could factor in of doing this movie. Del Toro, sorry. I believe a studio would have to control him, because I still think he would have that fear of wanting too much money, wanting this movie. And yes, Disney could afford it, but you got to think, they paid over $4 billion to get Star Wars. They don't want to overexert any more than they already have to. And with Nolan, Nolan doing a character arc of the Dark Knight trilogy, yes, he got you to 2 movies and then crapped the bed for the third one. For Star Wars, you don't want to get there with 2 movies and then crap the bed the third one. This isn't the prequels where you can argue all the different points of why they might be lesser than most, but you don't want to crap out, and I think Nolan would cause a crap out and a lot of people to get pissed off. And as for Dohmen's pick, I've never really heard of him, so I can't really argue too much on that, to be honest with you. So, but
fair closing there by Tim. Fair closing by Tim, and then over to Chris for your closing argument whenever you're ready, and then we will close up this question.
Okay, so for episode 9, you need to have it actually be a very character-driven piece, because we've spent so much time with these characters. We have to actually establish why they're going to be doing what they're doing in this film. Because all the decisions that they make in episode 8, they have to have a payoff in 9. If you don't have a director that knows how to capture those kind of intricacies, it is going to crap the bed big time, a la Dark Knight Rises. So, sorry there, Christopher Nolan. But because Nolan can't capture those intricacies, he's automatically a bad choice. Del Toro, again, same thing with characters. He does not capture characters well. He can capture a good tone. He can capture a good story, but he cannot give you good characters to save his life. You have George Miller, who, yes, he can give you a great layout. He can give you a great world, a great environment to be in. But again, because this is the closing chapter of a trilogy, you have to have it be a very fast-paced and a very large-scale story with a lot of moving parts to it. Now, Mad Max Fury Road is my favorite film of this decade, but it's not because it is a bulky story with a lot of moving parts. It's a simple story with a lot of moving parts, or it's a simple story with not as many moving parts. And Joss Whedon, hell, he even said himself, this would be a fanboy film. Star Wars cannot run on fanboy films. It's as soon as you do that, you go to that level of pandering for your audience, that's when you start to lose them. Nichols is the right choice out of this group because he can capture the characters that you need for this final film, and he can capture the story that you need with that is emotionally complex and with a lot of moving parts to close out what could still potentially be the best Star Wars trilogy of all time.
Alrighty, a good closing there from Chris. I'm going to give Henry just a couple seconds to wrap up all of his notes, all of his thoughts. In just a second, he's going to pick who he thought won this question, and that'll give that person a free in to the second round. While he's overgoing his thoughts over there, I'm going to go over some fact-checking things. Mark Rylance's character in Dunkirk was named Mr. Dawson.
Nobody cares.
It's a fact-checking thing. I am contractually obliged to say it. And then George Miller is 72 years old. So his age, as part of the debate, did come up. So George Miller is 72, not in his 80s. So Henry, if you think you're ready, I'll pass over to you. You can pick the winner of this question, who will get a point.
Henry, we do not have your volume.
Cannot hear you there, bud.
Can't hear you.
Please check your settings. And while we're waiting on Henry, I would like to say, guys, actually, pretty much all of you gave some actually good picks. So
Can you guys hear me yet?
Yep, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Just take a couple seconds. And
I was muted too long, so I think that's why. But anyway, since we had a lot of fingers in the kitchen, in the pot, I want to announce that a lot of repeat arguments and counter arguments were said, so I only gave credit to the person who said it first. So anybody who retread on it, unfortunately, I can't give you the credit because I can't consider that an original idea. So starting off, unfortunately, Tim, I didn't get any original counters from you, and I only got a couple of things from you as far as why Joss Whedon would work. Like the budget, he would be able to handle it. He wouldn't be able to need babysitting, and he can do characters. Even though you got knocked down a lot with his movies, but you were able to say from the TV, so that was okay. But unfortunately, I didn't hear enough from you. And then Mark, you were next. You did really good with Del Toro. You said it would be original. He can handle big budgets. He could handle the fan service, and he can handle sci-fi fantasy. And you even knocked down Dunkirk first with no character development. You said that Nichols would be too late with his emotion. Like, who cares about the emotion in the third movie? And you want it would be too drawn out, you think, and too emotional with Nichols. And then you said that Nolan would be more epic and he wouldn't care about the story as much. But unfortunately, I didn't hear enough for you for why Del Toro would work. And a lot of people knocked you down on why it wouldn't work. So unfortunately, I didn't go with you. Matt, you were next. You got Nolan. You said he's a fan of Star Wars. He has a lot of free time, so you would be able to invest in it. And he can encapsulate story and emotion. And you had some pretty good knockdowns with Whedon with the reshots. He's more of a popcorn filmmaker, and that he can't really handle the story, so you knocked him down there. You said that George Miller's stories are thin, and he's too old. You got Del Toro out. If he's not doing original ideas, he's pretty hit or miss. And then you said Nichols is boring, so you knocked them down a lot. But they knocked you down with Nolan and with your story, with your characters, and how he can't handle the third in a trilogy, and that really knocked you down. So it was between Dohmen and Chance for me on this one. Dohmen, you did really good. Your back was against the wall of Nichols because that was a very unorthodox pick. You got he can handle characters. He would develop them, and you can identify with them. He'd build them up real good. He can handle sci-fi like in Midnight Special. It would be emotional and it would be very fresh, and he can handle the payoff towards the end. And then you knocked down Del Toro with you were the first one to say that the budget. He would get in over his head with the budget. He doesn't have character development. You said George Miller can't handle the villains, and Star Wars is big on that, so that really helped you there. And then you said Joss Whedon. This was one I really liked, that you said he would pander and fanboy at the end. And then Chance, finally, you said that George Miller is a visionary. He can handle any genre. He can handle originality, like in Fury Road, and he can handle the family aspect, like Happy Feet and Lorenzo Oil, whatever that is. But I had to take your word for it. And then you said he's willing. He wouldn't be afraid to take Star Wars in a new direction, and he's a master of his craft, visuals, action, and plot. And then you knocked down Del Toro and said that he's never claimed to be a Star Wars fan, so he might not be able to handle it respectfully. And Whedon has proven that he cannot handle stuff in enough time. And then same thing with Nolan, the emotionless, like Dunkirk, and Nichols would be too emotional. So like I said, it's between Chance and Dohmen, and I think I just heard a little bit from Chance why I think the story would work with the action, the visuals, the plot. And a lot of people knocked down Dohmen of he would be a little too emotional and not enough epicness, which we all know that Star Wars needs to be epic, especially in the third one. So I went with Chance on this one.
Alrighty, so
that
with
was really close. Really close.
Chance is going to be awarded the first question and a first into the second round. So Chance, obviously you can stick around and just watch the next few questions, but you will not be debating them.
Still down me.
Oh, don't worry. I got the next one.
So Chance, just keep yourself muted if possible. You can stay here, stick around, boo and hiss all you want, but behind a mic or behind a muted mic, preferably. All right. So with that, we still have Mark, Matt, Tim, and Dohmen here to fight out question 2 for the second ticket into round 2. And here is the question we have. What is something now a part of Legends, a part of Star Wars Legends that should be reinserted into the new canon? What is something now a part of Star Wars Legends that should be reinserted into the new canon?
Let me announce this as the judge. I'm not familiar with any non-Star Wars movies, so you really have to convince me why your idea is better than another. So let's just throw that out there.
Alrighty, so you heard it from our judge himself today. We started with Chance last time, so we're going to be starting with Mark this time. Mark, what's something from Legends that should be reinserted into the new canon for your opening argument?
Probably the one. I've had 2 favorite characters. One is already canon with Thrawn. So I'm going with my second favorite character of all of canon, Marla Jade. Marla Jade, she started off as the Emperor Palpatine's, like, on the level with Darth Vader, just hidden in the settles as the Emperor's hand. Like, as a Dark Jedi Sith, she never really had a title for her. She was a Force wielder, but like just like she hated Luke Skywalker for basically being the death of Palpatine. But then she came to understand and became Luke Skywalker's wife at the time. So it's been 40 years. We don't really know what Luke Skywalker's been doing. It is very possible that you can fit Marla Jade into that time period. And she's brought a level of clarity to Luke. She's in the canon. She's kept Luke on the straight and narrow. She's grounded him. And I think she'd be a great addition to canon.
Alrighty, so Mark is going with Mara Jade Skywalker, a good pick there. Over to Matt. Matt, your opening argument. What part of Star Wars Legends should be reinserted into new canon?
Come on, it's the Knights of the Old Republic. Come on. I mean, for one, out of what I'm assuming all your choices are, this one you could change certain things and have it work the best. Yeah, you'll have those little tiny fanboys that cry, live in their mom's basement, whine because it's not the exact same. But then again, everything they brought in is not the exact same. Hi, police car. But if you have the Knights of the Old Republic, there's so much you can do. You can form a trilogy around the whole thing. So, yeah.
All right, definitely a strong pick there from Matt with the Knights of the Old Republic. Over to Tim. Tim, what you thinking?
See, I went with seeing how we've come with the series so far, how we're getting ready. After this movie, we're getting to episode 9 to close out this trilogy. And I'm thinking, what happens, because you eventually think, okay, they're going to be defeated. What do you do next for a villain? One that I loved from the Legends was the Yuuzhan Vong, an outside galaxy just came in and literally wrecked house. They destroyed so much. It took the hardest for all of them to finally come to at least somewhat of a peace to beat them. They were a menace that even Palpatine's empire starting into the original trilogy, even Palpatine would have had to fear them. So I would go with the Yuuzhan Vong of that giant invasion force to really finish out an ending to go on to something new.
Alrighty, Tim goes with the Yuuzhan Vong, and over to Chris Dohmen. What do you have for your Star Wars Legends that should be reinserted to new canon?
Controversial picks all around. This is gonna be fun. So I went with a pick that had just the best run in Legends, but sadly, this character only is now just mentioned in one of my favorite scenes in Revenge of the Sith, and that is Darth Plagueis. This is a character that essentially is responsible for everything we've seen in Star Wars. Why? Because he created Anakin. And this was confirmed in Legends that he was in fact the one who manipulated the midichlorians to create Anakin inside of Shmi. And what makes this character so fascinating is that he is someone who is so deliciously evil in the dark side. But the thing is, he actually wasn't a terrible person per se. So you could get an actor who exuberates in the charm, but also clearly can show his menace and bring this character to life in possibly a young Palpatine film. So, Darth Plagueis.
Alrighty, the Legend of Darth Plagueis the Wise for Chris Dohmen over there. So we're going to go into an open forum session. I'll be starting the clock in just a second. Last time we had 7 minutes between the 5 of you. This time we're going to go 6 minutes between the 4 of you. The floor is yours whenever you start talking.
Let's go with Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis. Sorry. Darth Plagueis the Wise. Chris, you said it yourself. It's already part of canon.
No.
The book is not. Darth Plagueis is.
The name is the only thing that's canon. That does not. That your argument's already invalid because I already said that in my opening pitch.
Yes.
I'm talking about the exact life that he lived before in the James Luceno novel Plagueis, which is incredible, by the way. I highly recommend reading it.
I agree.
However,
it is a great book, but it is canon. He is canon already.
Yeah, but to be fair, sorry, what's her name again? Marla Jade is what you kept saying.
Yeah.
No offense, Mark. Sorry, I'm giving you a little crap. However, Mara Jade no longer has a purpose in this new canon.
How so?
Why? Because if what we believe is correct, Luke never had kids. Luke never procreated. So ergo, you have to completely repurpose her for being in this story.
Oh, that is true if you're getting rid of Ben Skywalker.
They already have.
I didn't say Ben Skywalker, though. I said Marla Jade. And what? There's a 4-year gap. You can continue on what happened with Jason Solo. With Ben, we know Ben turned on Luke Skywalker. The devastating thing that he could have done was he could have continued on what he did by killing Marla Jade to prove to Snoke that he deserves to be Snoke's apprentice, for one thing with that.
Well, no, okay. See, that was the test of him killing Han Solo. That was him proving he could be Snoke's apprentice. That's the only reason.
Fully. But
no, not fully. Like, that was the test itself, as far as we know, because there hasn't been any other candidates to support your argument. No offense.
Yes.
And by the way, the Yuuzhan Vong, really? No offense.
Okay. Sorry, Tim, but I got it.
No offense. But
Yuuzhan Vong is
the most insane storyline. Now, granted, it led to some great things in the original Legends. It led to Darth Caedus, one of the best characters of all time. However, that storyline was so convoluted It was so drawn out because
It
it
was.
had to sell books. And let's
So-
get started on.
You
Knights
killed
of the-
Chewie. You killed Chewie.
Oh, I was fine with that. But no, Knights of the Old Republic. Are you fucking kidding? No.
That's
That
way
story
too
is
vague.
TV. That is TV. It does not work for a movie. You can't tell that story.
Perfectly fine. We got Lord of the Rings, which were over 3-hour-long movies, so you can do extended
Yeah.
cuts even on Blu-ray.
Yeah, but no.
You've got like a million, a millennia to go with the Knights of the Old Republic. That's
Even if you did just the first game, you can't tell that story in that short amount of time.
No,
because
you can't.
it's a 30-hour game that you're trying to tell in 10 hours of film. Even if you did 3 hours apiece, no, you still can't make that work. Because
let's look at Harry Potter. 750 pages is the Deathly Hallows, but they still made it a 2-hour movie.
Yeah,
They
still.
not Deathly Hallows.
They made
Half-Blood
two
Prince.
Knights of the Old Republic is too
Half-Blood
vague.
Prince.
There's
Half-Blood
too
Prince is what I
vague.
mean.
it's a terrible
Plus,
adaptation.
Mine,
Yeah.
Plus, mine is the only one.
What
out
are
of
you going
yours
to
that
focus on with the
still
Knights of the
haven't
Old
even
Republic?
seen.
Knights of
Mara
the Old
Jade
Republic.
is going to be a
Where are you
completely
gonna
different character. Therefore, it's not being Mara Jade because she's with Luke Skywalker. It's obvious Luke doesn't have kids, like Chris pointed out. And then you're mentioning like Han Solo. How would that make sense? Huh?
Why does Luke have to have a kid? I'm not talking
He
about
doesn't have
Ben
to have a kid.
Skywalker.
That's changing
I'm talking
character
about
in
Marla
general.
Jade
That's not the same
Skywalker.
thing, because it wouldn't make sense. It would be a completely new character. Why go to Mara
What?
Jade in that stance where she's supposed to be with Luke when obviously that's not happening?
Why can't it happen? There's a 40-year gap where we have no idea what Luke's really been into. They've been really quiet about
He's been
that.
training the new Jedi Knights.
Yes.
And then he
so-
died and he ran off.
So he can't fall in
He's been
love?
stopped from having sex because because if he goes back to the original Jedi teachings, what do they teach? You can't have sex. You can't fall in love. Unless he decides to break those rules because, he's going to be like his dad in that respect. And how did that turn out? Oh, yeah, the galaxy fell in fucking darkness.
Well,
because
yeah, no,
Anakin
you just
Skywalker
can't
wanted to get
restrict.
fucking laid.
You just can't restrict. You can adjust the rules. You don't have to fully. You can realize that's why the Jedi failed in the first place.
Oh, okay. So we're just gonna get a fluffy love piece then with Luke and Mara Jade. Awesome.
I'm not saying a fluffy love piece. I'm just saying like Luke can be in a relationship. Luke cares about his sister, right? But what? So no
That's what we're
attachment.
putting it.
No
he cares about
attachment.
her, right?
Okay, that was before they found out they were related. There's no attachment. You're not allowed to be attached to anyone.
Okay, hold on. Tim hasn't said shit. Tim.
Okay.
One, I was pretty much just watching this, but I will say this honestly, you kind of, if you think about it, there's other theories when Episode 7 came out whenever he was at the island with the tombstone, if you want to call that a tombstone, that rock. You could have said, hey, well, I mean, Mara Jade, it could have, you never know, because we still don't know who raised
At least, unlike Darth Plagueis, that has no idea. That's not even.
Well, no. If I can get the Darth Plagueis next,
is directly canon.
If I can get the Darth Plagueis next, yes, they had that
He
theory with
trained
Snoke with
Palpatine.
To bring the life of Darth Plagueis in, you want to do another Star Wars story. So far, we have Rogue One, which honestly, to my opinion, was just a fanboy letter, and I didn't think it was all that good. And with all the controversy with the Han Solo movie, we don't know how that's going to go.
And time there.
Do we really? Oh.
That's right. Just write it down. Make sure you keep it in your thoughts. Bring it up in your closing arguments. Sound good?
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Alrighty. So for closing arguments, we're going to be starting with Mark. Make sure you guys aren't spending too much time bringing up new points. Just sum up all your points that you've already said. Really get those last few hits in. And Mark, whenever you're ready.
Okay. With Marla Jade, like I said, there's a 40-year gap. We don't know much about what Luke's been up to. You can perfectly fit in the Marla Jade storyline into that. And, oh yeah, everyone wants to bring up Ben Skywalker. But I'm not talking about Ben Skywalker. Luke doesn't have to have a kid. He can have a really romantic relationship. And some of the old canon, Luke realized that was one of the failings of the old Jedi Order. About attachments. You're allowed to have attachments. Marla Jade fits in. You can kill her off. Like that could be one of the things that Kylo Ren does to finally just send Luke into a tailspin, into desperation. Darth Plagueis, like I said, Darth Plagueis is canon. We know he trained Palpatine, and we know that Palpatine killed him in his sleep. Knights of the Old Republic. That's extremely vague and extremely hard to do a movie or anything like that about it. Just you got what, a million years to go with, and you just saw the use of the Vaughn for Tim. I'm sorry, but they're just too OP, overpowerful, and they were so convoluted, like completely. One of the worst things that Legends did, in my opinion.
Alrighty, definitely good closing argument there from Mark. Over to Matt for your closing. Whenever you are ready, take it away, Matt.
All right, look, I don't know much about what Tim is talking about, but to me, by what he's pitching, it just sounds like an alien invasion movie, and that doesn't sound like Star Wars. It doesn't sound something that I would enjoy personally. So why would we want that? And what everybody's saying, it being the worst or one of the worst things that happen in Legends, why would we want that to be a movie? That's just fucking stupid. Then we look at Mara Jade. She won't even be the same character in, the movie. How are we going to introduce her? Why would we go to Luke? We want to get past Luke. We want to expand the universe. So why would we go to Mara Jade where she's connected very closely to Luke? Let's expand. Right there, that shortens and makes the universe smaller in a sense. You get what I'm saying? And then we get to Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis is canon. Yes, you could tell some other stories in the past, but he's already canon. He's made canon because of what Palpatine said to Anakin. That's very clear. But with Knights of the Old Republic, yeah, it takes place over many, many years, but we've seen many different movies, books, and stuff that were translated to, let's say, remakes or just new movies based on books that took a lot of story and source material and shrunk it down and still was able to make a really good thing. Lord of the Rings, those books are like a mountain, and they were able to make it into 3 hours. And I'm talking all three, and they made it great. They were able to tell a great story of that. And then we also look at the Harry Potter films, especially the later books, super long, but they were able to put it in a 2-hour condensed thing. Yeah, I know Deathly Hallows is 2 movies. That's a 750-page book. We're looking at things that are like 600 pages, which when you listen to it in an audiobook, it's like 40 hours. They were able to put it in 2 hours, still be able to make it a good movie. So I went Knights of the Old Republic. You got a lot of good characters in that saga that could be brought in, that could add something new to Star Wars. It's Game of Thrones meets Star Wars.
Alrighty, Game of Thrones meets Star Wars for Matt. Tim, for your closing, whenever you're ready, man, take it away.
I think first, thank you, Chris, for letting me get in that actual discussion with everyone arguing their head off. But I do want to start with the Knights of the Old Republic. How you said, okay, Lord of the Rings did it right. Harry Potter did it right. It's funny that no one, every time they mentioned Lord of the Rings, they never include The Hobbit. A 1,000-page book, and yet 3 movies, you constantly screwed up. The Knights of the Old Republic is so immersed, so expansive. You need more than just 3 movies. You need a whole new universe for that, with so many years, so many characters, so much depth in the Old Republic, and that whole series. With Palpatine, I feel if you go into his early life, you go into a Star Wars story, another Star Wars story. We had one that hasn't worked, one that's in trouble every which way. Directors replaced, screenwriters leaving. With Palpatine, we already have him in there. Yes, we know is by his apprentice. That's how the Sith work. But I don't think you're going to be able to do it justice for a good book as that book was. You're not going to be able to do it justice. And with the Yuuzhan Vong, yes, it might be an invasion movie, but here's the thing. What's wrong with OP villains? You had Darth Vader. Darth Vader was an OP villain along with Emperor Palpatine in the original trilogy. Guess what? The Republic still won. Who's to say this new Republic now couldn't win against an invasion against the Yuuzhan Vong? You don't have to make them OP. You don't have to stick exactly to Legends. They don't. They cherry pick. They keep most everything together, like Thrawn. They kept most of it the same, but not everything has to be the same. So you can hype it down. And Mara Jade, I'm sorry, Mara Jade, it just never seemed as an important character, because I mean, really, besides having a love story with Luke, what does she do? What does she do besides being with Luke? And I think with the Yuuzhan Vong, a strong invasion, you can take that into 3 new movies to fight on if you want to do 3 new movies with this cast that you will have now after episode 9. I'm thinking of more of a future of something you could do. And that's it.
Alrighty, a good closing there from Tim. And to finish off this question, Chris Skywalker Dohmen, whenever you're ready.
Well, yeah, I have to keep my legacy alive because I have to support the legacy of my great-great-great-grandfather, Darth Plagueis. But okay. The problem with the Knights of the Old Republic is when you're trying to tell a story that literally takes place over, assuming that would be the whole thing, and it wouldn't just be the first game, you're talking about literally 300 years of material that you're trying to cover. And there are so many characters and events that are just literally impossible to actually go through every single, to even do it in a trilogy. You couldn't do that. Mara Jade, sadly, is obsolete. She's a product of her time. And in her time, she was fantastic. But now she is no longer relevant because of the new rules set by canon. The Yuuzhan Vong, sadly, is the same way. They're irrelevant, they're outdated, and they were a blight upon what Star Wars was about. Plagueis is interesting because of the simple fact that name me a piece of canon that isn't the Clone Wars, where we only saw a glimpse of it, where we actually got to see the dark side of the Force. We've seen all there is to see about the light side. We have seen Jedi after Jedi explain the Force, but we've not actually gotten into the dark side. We have not gotten into the villains. We've not gotten into their perspective, their point of view. And if we had a Plagueis movie that actually dove into that, that would expand the universe so infinitely to see what the dark side was actually capable of. And that's why we need a Plagueis movie.
All right, definitely strong arguments from everybody involved. Really, this is definitely a strong fight. I'll give Henry just a couple seconds to gather his thoughts as I go over some fact-checking things. There was an argument made that Darth Plagueis is already canon. I don't know how much Wikipedia. I'm assuming
all that Wikipedia pretty much says is that Plagueis was mentioned in Revenge of the Sith.
Yep. As far as what they say that is canon, they say this is the part of Darth Plagueis that is canon. Darth Plagueis was a male Dark Lord of the Sith and a master of Darth Sidious. He acquired considerable knowledge in the field of midi-chlorian manipulation, but was ultimately betrayed and murdered by his own apprentice. And according with the rule of 2, Sidious later recounted the tale of his master's demise to lure Anakin Skywalker to the dark side. That is all that is canon about Plagueis. The stories about him and Anakin and all that stuff in the past, that is not canon. So the answer of Darth Plagueis was accepted. So as far as the argument against that holding water, open to interpretation. There were some page numbers thrown around. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows is 607 pages, not 750. And I don't know who thought The Hobbit was 1,000 pages, but it most definitely
Yeah, I
is
was like,
not.
what?
The Hobbit is a 300-page book, not a 1,000-page book. So, yeah, I gotta fact check that one. The Hobbit is a very dense story, but at the same time, it is a children's story, and it's just under 300 pages.
Can I ask a question? Was the question, are we're creating a movie, or we're just making something legend canon?
The exact wording of the question was, what is something now a part of Star Wars Legends that should be reinserted into the new canon?
Okay,
That was the question.
Making a full movie out of something was not the question. Okay.
No.
Correct. That's where some of the arguments went, but I mean that's also like fair. If you're gonna have it in canon, why not like display it loud and proud to the audience?
Well, you don't even need to make a full movie out of it.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering.
So that's all the fact checking that I have. Henry, your thoughts whenever you're ready, man. Make a ruling. We're just gonna pick the winner of this round.
All right, so starting off with Tim, he ended really strong, but unfortunately he didn't get enough in the main game, so he was able to build up his storyline a little bit, but he wasn't able to knock anyone else's down because he just retreaded what most people said. Mark and Matt, you guys did really good. creating your idea of what you want to do, but similar to Tim, you guys just kept retreading counter arguments. And Dohmen, you said how it's going to be a first-person villain story, and it's going to come from their storyline. And I thought that was a great closing. You said he's going to be charming, menacing, and manipulating. And you also were the first to hit all the counter arguments, so I'm going with Dohmen on this one.
Boo!
A fair warning there, as Chris
Yeah,
Skywalker
why not
Dohmen
tell
is
you
going to
a
take
chance?
question 2. So Chris, obviously you can hang around for quite a while still.
Of course,
You're
of course.
definitely into round 2 as long as you just mute your mic. That's what we're going to ask. And now we're going to go into the final actual question that's going to be between Mark, Matt, and Tim. This is going to determine who is the last person to get the free ticket to round 2. And our question this time: if you could rewrite one plot line in any of the Star Wars movies, what would you rewrite, and how would you rewrite it? So I'll say that again. If you could rewrite one plot line in any of the Star Wars movies, what would you rewrite, and how would you rewrite it? This time we are going to start off with Matt. So Matt, whenever you are ready for your opening argument, what do you want to rewrite?
You're muted. Matt, you're muted.
Matt, you're muted.
Hey, there we go.
Hey, there you go.
Okay. Editing fun stuff. Okay. So, wait, is this really hard to guess? It's the Anakin and Padme's love story. I mean, my God, that is the thing that brings all the prequels down the most. It spawned the I hate sand speech. It had the darkroom speech that Robert just loved so much. This is a horrible plot line. It doesn't really go anywhere. Yeah, it's key and it's essential, but it's written so poorly. Okay, so what I would do is I would give, the plot some female that's more interesting. You don't have to have Padme. It does not say in the original trilogy, Padme is my mother. It does not say that at all, as far as I'm concerned. So, what you could do is you can have a more strong female character. Maybe introduce a Jedi. Have that whole thing where they're both betraying what the Jedi law is and all that stuff. So that's how I would change it. And I would change that fucking storyline.
Alrighty, definitely there, Matt. The Anakin Padme love story from the prequels, insulting me and my acting ability in the darkroom speech, but that's fine. I'll take it.
You got that
And
one.
next we're gonna go over to Tim. Tim, whenever you're ready.
I probably took it a little wrong for the question, but I went with a plot that I would have changed more than anything would be going all the way back to episode 1, introducing a young Anakin, because I feel with everything that they were doing with that movie, introducing Anakin Skywalker at that age, I felt they didn't have to do. Anakin was too whiny, not good dialogue with him, not a good story as that young child. You could have easily introduced him, saved it for the second one, or saved it for later in the first one, bringing him as a teenager, using the backstory of his mom got knocked up with the midichlorians. You could have easily done that. He could have easily been a product of the Force, been a little bit older, been a little bit more matured, and not drag into 3 movies of him as a whiny child.
Alrighty, going young Anakin from episode 1 on that one. So Mark, you have the floor. Open your argument. What you got?
In all honesty, it probably basically starting off episode 1 with the blockade, and you're starting off a Star Wars movie with politics, like with boring blockade politics. Like basically, after you really should be starting off like something more heavy. Like it's just like you started off with a whimper. Unfortunately, just like you start off with a little bit of the history of the Jedi, or like Jedi succeeding with Palpatine kind of taking over. Yeah.
Alrighty, everybody choosing to rewrite something from the prequels. You guys are going to have 5 minutes to fight it out in this main round. Keep in mind, whoever wins this question is automatically into the second round. The two who don't are going to have to battle it out in some speed round questions. So, floor is yours. I will start the clock for 5 minutes when you guys start talking.
Look, I want to start with Tim. You're saying that you want to change, Anakin from being that little whiny boy to what he is, being a little older, being like, let's just call it like 17 years old. Why not? Let's just do that. But here's the thing. Luke's a whiny little bitch in the movies too. Watch A New Hope again. He whines, talking about power converters. And even though you change, the age to, like, let's say from 10 to 17 or 18 or whatever, you would still have Hayden Christensen. How does that improve the other movies? It doesn't do that. You would still have him in the movie.
We're not into the question of who would you recast as Anakin.
No, that's not
We're
what I'm
into
saying.
the question of what you would change. You want to change the
the
little romance. Without that romance, without that kiss, you don't get Leia, you don't get Luke. With changing that,
did you pay attention to what I said? Did you pay attention to what I said, Timothy? I said introduce somebody else, have a more complex character, a strong female that we can care about more. Yeah, Padme's in politics and stuff, I guess she's kind of cool, but she's not that powerful. She's not that strong-willed. Leia is a very strong female character.
I'm sorry, but even if you were to change the characters in there, the writing for that is just completely terrible. So you could change the characters all you want.
Better, writing. You could change the love story overall, have a more complex, maybe not complex so much, but a powerful character. Unlike Padme, it would have the opportunity to give, the love story a little more believable, better dialogue.
You don't want to change Padme. Padme, if anything, you gotta change Anakin.
For one,
you don't change Padme. You don't change Padme.
You can change what? Why can't you change Padme? Does it say in episode 4, 5, 6, Padme's my mom? She was in politics. No. Yeah, Leia ended up being, a general, obviously because General Leia. But still, you don't have to have Padme in there. You could take her out, add a different character who's also into politics, that is a stronger character, more well written, and then, who knows? Maybe you can have better dialogue all around. Changing, Anakin's age doesn't change the fact he's still a whiny bitch, and that's what Luke is. He's a whiny bitch, so of course they're gonna make him
nowhere near as whiny as a young little child Anakin. Yes.
Yeah. No. It just straight up comes down to.
But guess what? He still at least had more of his shit together than a young Anakin.
You still need the love angle. You still because you still got to lead to Luke and Han being born. Oh, sorry, Luke and Leia. My bad.
Well, Han
Luke and Leia being born.
Yeah.
You can't really change
have Padme in there.
If you change the politic angle, like you're doing a movie about a blockade for the first movie. You're starting off like.
But to be fair, you're starting off with the movie. You're trying to fill the audience into what is going on at this time period.
Yeah,
you have to fill them in quick.
They were setting up.
Fill them in quick. You can do a lot better job than that. Just
look, okay. So let's look at the story overall.
Politics.
Let's look at the story overall for the prequels. I think we can all agree the overall story, what it's about, is good. They have good stories in it. It's about the execution. So. What I thought they did, and one of the big highlights for episode 1 for me personally, was they set up what was to come in The Phantom Menace very well. You had to have that in there. It's the start of a war. You got to have those politics in there. You can't change that.
You have to.
Politics, how does Emperor Palpatine go and become the Emperor in there? How does he do that? You really can't, change much, because if you change much, it changes what episode 4, 5, 6 was. And then also, like I said, just because you make Anakin from 10 to like 17,
what 4, 5, 6 was?
What episode 2?
You can't changing the characters for Anakin and Padme.
But it doesn't affect Luke and Leia, though. You can have a more complex, more powerful female character, and you can still have.
But you don't need it. You already had it. It was fine.
It would make the love story better.
Yeah.
It would make the love story better. You could change the love story.
But it was already fine as it was. It was fine because you saw how they came together.
Oh my God, it was terrible. That's the worst thing. That's the thing everybody talked about was the shitty.
No, the worst thing is focusing on a whiny little child because he misses his mommy.
Because he was still a whiny little bitch.
Started later in his life, and then it wouldn't have mattered because here's the thing: if you would have started a little bit later in life, okay, He would have been just a little bit more older for episode 2. That's fine.
And so why doesn't change the
You don't
character?
need a freaking kid in a little pod race with all of his stupid little friends.
Pod race is
and
awesome. Don't shit on the pod race.
The pod race was
cool.
horrible. The pod race was
it
horrible.
was
The CGI fucking hut. The 2 little racist anchor men in there.
Time there. We're going time.
Okay.
Alrighty. Definitely, arguably the most passionate round we've had so far. Very passion-filled. We're going to go to closing arguments. I believe we started with Matt this time, right? So,
Yes.
Matt, we're going to go to you for closing arguments. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Okay, so the fact that Tim thinks that changing the plot as far as making Anakin from 10 to 18 would be better doesn't change anything. That's honestly what I thought about, let's say 5-6 hours. I was kind of thinking of doing that, but then I realized that if you make him older, he's still going to be whiny. He's still going to be a bitch because he's the same character in episode 2. He's still whiny. He still complains a lot. He doesn't change the character. It's the same character, but a little older. That's all it is. He's the exact same thing. But with the blockade, politics and stuff, you have to have that in there. It introduces you to the movie very well. It's one of the highlights. Going back watching it a few days ago, I was like, wow, this movie's a lot better than what I remembered. Because that scene, it was actually done pretty well. You needed the politics, because if you take out the politics in that way, then you can't start off the war that way. And then also, let's take out the politics in general. How does the Emperor become the Emperor? How does Palpatine rise to power? You have to have that in there. If you change the love story, you add a different character in there, you take Padme out, and you add something else. For one, it does not change Luke and Leia at all. It actually makes Leia more like her mother, because she's a very powerful and strong female character. Padme is not a strong female character. She's just there to be the love interest for Anakin. You add somebody who is a strong female character, it's going to add more levity to the story all around, and you're going to care about it more, regardless of dialogue, but it gives you the opportunity to put better dialogue in the film. So yeah, that's why I went with changing Anakin Padme bullshit love story.
Alrighty, definitely a strong closing there by Matt. We're going to go to Tim. Tim, whenever you're ready for your closing argument, take it away, man.
Okay. With the whole changing of the love story, if you go with a stronger lead other than Padme, it's not going to change it. They fell in love. They're going to have kids. He's going to become Darth Vader. There's nothing that's going to change it. Nothing's going to change no matter who you put in there. It's the same love story, period. If you go with a older Anakin, you can give him... You don't have to focus on a little child with mommy issues. You could focus on a little bit older of a person going into a maturity, going into adulthood. You can focus on that. With the politics and everything, you can't just drop somebody in a movie blind, especially a Star Wars movie. If you drop somebody in a Star Wars movie, I guarantee you that theater is going to clear out because they're going to go, what the fuck is this? Pardon my French. You have to have the politics. You have to have the information. You can't just go in blind, like I said, especially Star Wars of, okay, what's that? Who's that? Where's that? You got to have it. You have to have the blockade. They could have done it better. I will agree with that. They could have done all the prequels better. They could have done the love story better. They could have done Anakin better. But Anakin is the most provident. So many people have hated starting with young Anakin as a child. If you would have started him a little bit older, going into manhood, as a life change, or growing, it could have made it more interesting in the beginning and could have carried over into 3 movies. Granted, yes, he was still going to have his emotional attachments with his mother and with where he grew up. That's fine. You're going to have that, and he's going to have his emotional hang-ups with Padme. But it could be a better lead and better understanding leading into Darth Vader and his turmoil, because when you start with the original trilogy, you don't see that. You could have easily fixed it all the way at the beginning if you would have done it right. That's it.
All right, a good closing there from Tim. Over to Mark for your closing. Feel free to wrap it up, man.
Oh yeah, no, like when it comes to Anakin Padme, you can't really change that storyline. You can change the characters or anything like that. You still got to lead up to Anakin and Padme getting together, creating Luke and Leia. You can't really. How are you going to really change that without affecting everything? And with kind of dropping people into blind, That's kind of what they did with Force Awakens. Like, there was a 40-year gap where you really had no idea what was going on during that time period. It started off, Luke has vanished. But really, you don't really fully know what's going on until the opening crawl there. And it just like you just change up the politics a little bit. How just don't start off with a boring trade blockade and negotiations, and like just change how you start off episode 1 with the blockade, with the Gungans, everything leading like that. But it's just like, and Anakin, you're not really changing anything if you, for plot point wise, if you make Anakin older or younger. If you change Anakin's age, for a plot point wise, that doesn't affect anything at all.
Alrighty, a good closing there by Mark. I'm just going to take a quick second and do just one quick point. It's not really fact checks. Just something I wanted to say that I don't think anybody brought up. You guys both had, or all three of you, not you guys both. All three of you had interesting picks here. You guys all chose something from the prequels to change. One thing I found interesting is Tim wanted to make Anakin older. It wasn't brought up in the argument, so Henry shouldn't include this in the actual judging. But when I was just thinking of, is that they already told Anakin when he was young that he was too old to start the Jedi trials. So I just thought that was an interesting point that neither Matt or Mark brought up, but that Anakin was already too old to start the trials. So with that being said, I will hand it over to Henry to do some judging here.
So that's the main reason that made this decision hard. Can you guys hear me right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what made that decision difficult, because they said that you have to start off as a Jedi young, so making it older, that would have messed everything up. And Tim didn't say he was already going to be a Jedi and we'd just be introduced to him older. He said we'd just be introduced to the character as a whole older. You know, he'd come in as a teenager, meet him as a teenager, but no one knocked that down. So that's what made this tough, because Tim overall had the best counters. He said that changing the love story would affect the overall results, or it would contradict the results of Luke and Leia. Introducing the politics was good because it provided overall depth of what we're going to see throughout the prequels. And he said that the love story that we saw was fine, and even if you change the character, it would still be the same writing, so it would be the same love story. So he had the most hits, but Matt had the best change, where he said it was already poor writing, it's very memeable, you know, it affects the entire prequels. Padme is bland, making her a Jedi would be pretty cool, and that would kind of, you know, make us understand why Leia is so strong once we finally get that twist at the end of the original trilogy. Unfortunately, I didn't hear enough from Mark on, you know, why either how changing the politics would affect the overall story, other than the fact it was just a slow start to the new trilogy. So unfortunately, Mark is out, and it was between Matt and Tim. And I think I'm gonna go with Matt on this one, because I liked how he actually changed more and he made it overall story. You know, Tim definitely countered, but for this one, since I just like the actual change itself, you know, that it'd be more interesting, and it, you know, we'd provide more depth for the character. So I barely, by the slightest, like this one was tough, but by the slightest, I'm gonna go Matt.
Definitely fair then. So Matt's going to take this question 3. And with that, Matt is going to go into round 2. Mark and Tim, neither of you guys are out of the woods yet, though. You guys are going to have to face in a best of 3 speed round question. So how this is going to work, these points will not count towards your actual overall point standings at all. This is just to continue on in the match. We have 3 questions available. It's going to be the first person to win 2 of these questions. We're going to have 30 seconds for you to answer in the first part of the question, and then you're going to each have a 15-second rebuttal is how it's going to work. The first person to shout out an answer is going to get to argue that answer and is going to have to argue first. So that's a strategic thing. Make sure you keep that in mind. Any questions between you guys doing this speed round right now?
Nope.
Alrighty, so let me pull up the questions. The speed round questions. Here is what we're gonna do. Alrighty, this one's a little bit open-ended here. What is the best ship in the Star Wars universe?
Millennium Falcon.
Let's go Star Destroyer.
Alrighty, Star Destroyer. So, Mark, you were first. You got 30 seconds. Whenever you start talking, I start the clock.
It's the Millennium Falcon. Probably, as a fanboy, probably one of the most known ships, but also when it comes to a Star Destroyer, the Millennium Falcon has proven many a times it outsmarts a Star Destroyer all the time. It can hide it as garbage. The Millennium Falcon makes the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs, which is the unit of distance, not time.
Time there, right there, time there. We're gonna go over to Tim for your 30 seconds when you're ready. Go ahead.
Okay, a Millennium Falcon, yeah, it can outrun a Star Destroyer, but it's not a fleet of Millennium Falcons that help the Empire gain dominance over the galaxy and keep that dominance. A Star Destroyer is so destructive. You get enough of them together, you can decimate a planet yourself probably without a Death Star. A fleet of Star Destroyers held the Empire, won the Empire, and ran it all the way into the original trilogy.
And time there. All right. And then we're going to go back 15 seconds to Mark. Make sure you guys are talking as much as you can. Get as many points in as possible.
Like I said, it's the Millennium Falcon. It's the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy. Han Solo's made many illegal changes to it. It's survived. It's like a ship that's survived since, well, we did see it in episode 2.
Time there. And Tim, when you're ready, go ahead.
You want to see a ship that can survive? Trust me. Put your Millennium Falcon up against a Star Destroyer. A Star Destroyer open against it will destroy it and turn it into cosmic dust. And that's it.
And time there. I'm always going to give you guys the full time, whether you use it or not. Just keep talking. That's what the speed round is all about. Henry, whenever you're ready, go ahead. Make your ruling.
So I'm very surprised in this ruling. I went in with one answer and one answer only, but I didn't hear enough from Mark. I got more nostalgia based and it was more flash and more cool and quick. But Tim made a good point that if it got a hold of it, it would crush it instantly. And he impressed me. I was surprised. I'm going to go with the Star Destroyer.
All right, Tim's up 1-0 in this speed round. Don't worry, we still have 2 questions left. Mark, this is a must hit for you. If you win this question, we go to a third one. Tim, if you hit this, you are into the next round. And your next question is this. Which is the better modern Star Wars movie, Force Awakens or Rogue One?
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens.
That was close. I
heard Mark. It was definitely Mark.
You heard Mark first?
Yeah,
okay,
Mark
so
said
Mark
Force
is going to
Awakens.
argue for Force Awakens. Tim is going to argue for Rogue One. Obviously, there are great parts of both of these movies. Mark, if you were first, you're going to have to argue first. 30 seconds when you are ready.
With The Force Awakens, basically, it's setting up a new trilogy. It set up a new trilogy. Yes, it retreaded it a little bit, had a little bit of the same plot points, but it was more open-ended. It set up the trilogy. It created brand new characters that you can get invested with. And it continues and expands the Star Wars canon.
Time there. All right, 30 seconds are up. Tim, over to you when you're ready.
Okay, with Rogue One, you finally learn the story of, in the initial crawl of Episode 4, the rebels steal the plans. You finally see how they steal those plans for this Death Star, and you see what they sacrifice to get those plans to the rebellion, to have hope to beat the Empire. They gave up everything in that story. They gave up their very essence to get the hope to the rebellion.
Time there. All right, 15 seconds over to Mark whenever you are ready, man.
Yeah. Unfortunately, when it comes to Rogue One, it's just a self-contained story. And you got the characters, but you knew you couldn't get really emotionally invested with it just because you knew what was going to happen at the end. And unfortunately, there were 2 characters.
Tim, whenever you're ready, you got your last 15 seconds. Fight hard, man.
Emotional characters? You had a droid as the most emotional character in that thing. And for The Force Awakens, it's basically a plot-for-plot point of A New Hope. It's all it is rehash. It's not anything new. It was rehashed with maybe a little bit splash of new to change it up.
Woo. Alrighty, Henry, you're in a very difficult position here. I feel it, man. I've had many of those judging positions where it's just so close. Your call, Henry. What do you feel?
So this is one where Mark started off by saying that it's a retread of A New Hope, but it expanded the universe and you got new characters. So Tim's only defense against Force Awakens was his rehash, so I felt like that kind of canceled out. And Mark brought up how you didn't get the characters because you knew it was going to be the story, and unfortunately Tim only brought up one droid. He didn't even say his name, so I didn't get enough from Tim why Rogue One was better, so I am going to go with Mark on that. That was close.
All right, we're tying it up, run 1-1. I feel you, Tim, there. I know earlier you said you hated Rogue One. So
it was basically me trying to defend a movie, and I've seen it so much in Screen Junkies. So
yeah, I'm sure you did not like arguing for that pick, but that happens sometimes in these things.
Yep.
So this last speedrun question is going to be the decider of who else moves on to round 2. Here we go. What movie would you show a first-time viewer first?
New Hope.
New Hope. Oh,
Ooh, Tim got that one first.
I heard Tim.
okay, I'll go with Empire.
Alrighty, we're going Empire for Mark, New Hope for Tim. Tim, you're going to be up first. 30 seconds.
Okay, A New Hope brings you into a whole new immersive world. You see a young hero, his mentor, a band of essentially brothers come together to defeat an evil of an empire. It's a great contained story that starts you off into an immersive venture into a trilogy of movies. It is the perfect place to start. It is the perfect movie to see Harrison Ford shine.
Time there. 30 seconds to Mark when you're ready.
Yes, Empire Strikes Back is the second, basically the second film in the franchise that was created, and it is the sequel. But it also it is open-ended, and it leads you. You're someone a first-time fan. You want them to get invested. You want them to see more and more and more. At the end of Empire Strikes Back, you need to see Return of the Jedi. You need to see how the storyline plays out. Unfortunately, A New Hope is...
Time there for Mark. We're going to go 15 seconds back to Tim.
Okay, you want to show them basically the second act of 3 acts. You're dropping them in the middle of a story that they have no idea. You start with A New Hope, you learn your characters, your places, your villains, you learn it all. You drop it in the middle, they're going to look around like, what the hell am I watching?
And 15 seconds, wrap it up, Mark. You got this.
You're saying you get dropped in the middle. Yes, the first one informs you of the characters. Also, Empire Strikes Back actually does a really good job itself of getting you invested in Luke, Yoda, the relationship between Darth Vader and
Time there. It's 15. Alrighty, a tough call to make here, but it falls on Henry's shoulders. What do you got, Henry?
So unfortunately, this wasn't tough at all. Mark knew his back was against the wall, and he wasted most of his time defending his choice instead of actually providing us reasons why it was the better answer. So definitely, Tim was a runaway with this one. It's unfortunate for Mark, but you know he hardly had any actual arguments for why it was a good reason. And Tim, he almost didn't. You know, he finally threw that at the end, like this is why you better show somebody. But overall, yes, Tim definitely won that one.
Alrighty, we're going Tim there, which means, Tim, you are moving on to round 2. And this is not over yet. Mark, before we say goodbye to you, where can people find you online?
Full Metal Trivia. You'll see me on most of the videos there as I run the production. As you can talk with Chance there. Tim, congratulations, buddy. I'm glad I have you as a partner. And bring it home for Omega Club, buddy.
All right.
Everyone, and take care.
Alrighty, and Mark, you're definitely welcome to hang around with Muted Mike and Cam if you want to watch the rest of the match. But definitely, we're gonna have to just have you stay in the background for now. But definitely, you're welcome to stay around. So, with that, round 1 is finally over. All right, so round 1 is over. We're going to be hopping into round 2, which is going to work the same way. This way, This time we have Chance, Matt, Tim, and Chris. We're going to have you guys fight 2 main round questions, and then the 2 people left are going to do the same thing that Mark and Tim just did with the speed round questions.
So I got to do stuff now again?
Yeah.
Sadly, as do I.
Dohmen, round 2, baby.
Round 2, baby.
Yeah, here's the thing. They were off resting, jerking off, and goofing off. Meanwhile, someone like me still going strong and fighting on. So
yeah, definitely. They might have gotten a little bit rusty in their time off.
Well, for all you guys know, probably. But I will say, though, to Tim and Matt, congratulations on making it to round 2. And, well, best of luck and no hard feelings.
Chris talking some trash here today. But with that, we are going to get right into round 2 with our first question. Just to keep in mind to make sure we're being as efficient as possible when it comes to time. Make sure your opening and your closing arguments are as focused as possible. You're not really wasting time. Make sure you prepare your thoughts a little bit ahead of time. So with that, we have our first question of round 2. Who gave the best performance in the original trilogy? What actor or actress gave the best performance in the original trilogy? We are going to start with, where are we at? We're going to start with Tim on this one for his opening argument. Tim, when you are ready.
Oh, thank you. I went with more, instead of an actor or actress, I went with what I thought was an important part in the original trilogy to make work. And I thought it was Frank Oz with the Yoda puppet to make Yoda work in Empire Strikes Back. Because once you got to that second movie with Luke in that storyline, you had to have that work. You had to have that puppet work, and Frank Oz brought it to life with his background with puppeteering. He brought that character to life where you felt it was just like Mark Hamill, like Harrison Ford, just like a regular cast member. He brought it to life and made that movie work in such a success. And now we have such a great character as Yoda because Frank Oz started it all with that puppeteering, and that's it.
All right, so Tim going with Frank Oz right off the bat. Chris, when you are ready, the best performance in the original trilogy.
Okay, so I went with a performance that even though you see it, you technically can't see it, because I went with David Prowse as the body of Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi. Why? Because in that film especially, Vader is involved in so many emotional moments, so many moments that define who he is as a character in that point in time. And it's not because of James Earl Jones's delivery that is what gives it. It's because of David Prowse's physical acting in the suit. And I will give more examples as we proceed.
All righty, good opening there from Chris. Exactly what we're looking for in an opening. Over to Chance, best performance in the original trilogy.
Oh, can't wait to fight these two. Ultimately, yeah, there are a lot of good performances in the original trilogy, but ultimately, I'm going with Harrison Ford. You know, when you think about iconic characters in the original trilogy, your mind will always go first to Harrison Ford as Han Solo, which is crazy to think that they had to go through like 6 actors before they even got to him. I mean, you talk about a guy who just steps on set and just makes the movie his own. It's Harrison Ford. Every scene he's in, every line he has, he makes the most of it. Even this is just original trilogy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Never mind. Yeah. Every time he steps on screen, he owns that scene. So yeah, I'm saying Harrison Ford.
Alrighty, a good pick with Harrison Ford. And Matt, you are left. Who is your pick for the best performance in the original trilogy?
Just like Chris, I went with a performance in Return of the Jedi, and to me, it's easily Mark Hamill. This is a performance that has a lot of emotion going through. He has a lot of demons he's battling. There's a moment in this incredible fight between him and Darth Vader that he's tempted to go to the dark side, and you can see that in his mind. That's alone why the fight is so great. So I went with Mark Hamill because you could tell he went from just the whiny little kid all the way to this now badass. Yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty, sorry about that. A good pick there from Matt. We're going to go into the main round of questions. This time, since there are only 4 of you, I'm gonna go 5 minutes, which is the length of just a normal match. We're gonna go 5 minutes. Open forum, floor is open when you guys want to start talking.
Now let's look at
first of all,
Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi. If you didn't have James Earl Jones, you could cast somebody else, and it could easily have been a laughable villain. And I'm talking Episode 4 all the way to Return of the Jedi. You could have casted Sideshow Bob going, "Hey everybody, it's me, Darth Vader," and then Darth Vader be looked at as a joke, and nobody would want to see Darth Vader in. You
realize I'm not talking about the voice. I'm talking about strictly the performance, the physical.
No, exactly.
But here's the thing with no, James Earl Jones is off the table. You cannot hold.
But here's the thing with David Prowse. Here's the thing with David Prowse, though. You're saying David Prowse makes the role. That's a lie. It's James Earl Jones. Have you ever seen the Darth Vader performance without James Earl Jones' voice?
Of course I fucking see it. But no, again, that's not what I'm trying to argue. What I'm trying to argue is that
Darth Vader is two people. It takes two actors to play Darth Vader, and you didn't even pick the best one. You picked David Prowse, who all he had to do was just stand there in a suit, swing a stick, and choke a guy. That's it. That's all he does. He doesn't have a lot of levels to play off of.
But I am going to say,
because Han Solo is such a well-rounded, emotional character. Because literally, this was George's direction for Harrison Ford. Hey, be smooth. That's pretty much all that Harrison Ford had to do in those movies. And that's all he did. He was smooth. He shot a blaster. He shot first.
No, look, he's a smooth talker. He's a renegade. He's someone who's in it for himself, and you get that for his actual performance. And like every performance, every movie, he changes. Like first performance, you see him, he's just a guy out for himself until he changes in the end. Where like he's like, oh, you know what? I can fight for other people. Episode 5, you see him starting to, you see him start to like the romantic side of Han. You start to see like he's actually building a relationship with these people. And Return of the Jedi, you see him that like he has to step into this hero role. He has to be that. He grows with every single movie, and with every single movie, his performance has to change. And Harrison Ford does that with spades, and it's a masterclass.
Okay, so
you have basically
the whole trilogy.
And
just one film.
Look, Han Solo and Lando are almost the same character identically, and Lando is a better character than Han Solo in the movies. He's the same thing, and you like.
We're not talking about character. We're talking about performance. And Harrison Ford is better performance than Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, Billy D. Williams basically is giving the same performance that Harrison Ford gives for Han Solo, but he does it better. So why would you go with Harrison Ford when you go with somebody who you're kind of in the same ballpark?
Because Billy D. Williams was smooth in real life. You look at Harrison Ford in real life, he wasn't that smooth talking. He wasn't that slick bandit. He had to play more.
I mean,
I want to talk about Frank Oz real quick. Frank Oz, yes, great puppeteer, but that really. Just like David Prowse, he's only playing half the role. All he's got to do is the voice. He's not. I mean, he did some puppet work there and then, but that's. I mean, like
okay. But here's the thing.
That's it.
Without that great performance, the whole arc with Luke training that pretty much falls on its ass, and you don't go into Return of the Jedi with the Darth Vader body giant performance. You don't get Luke in that performance. In the end too, with Return of the Jedi, balance right there. That made Empire Strikes Back. That helped that
at all.
That's the character. That's not the performance. That's all the character.
Return of the Jedi. You could take out Yoda, have somebody else completely different to train him. Hell, you can have Obi-Wan survive, and you can have Obi-Wan train, Luke more, and you would have the same, impact in Return of the Jedi. Frank Oz, he has a great voice, but that's really it. He's just playing a grumpy old man in there. At least in Return of the Jedi with Mark Hamill, he's giving you a very emotional, empowering performance, and it pays off with the arc that was set in A New Hope, where he was just this kid who was whiny and stuff, and now he became this badass. He saves the galaxy.
Jedi is Mark Hamill's least acting performance. Empire Strikes Back. He knocks it out of the park. In Return of the Jedi, the first half of the film, he is just laying there like he's just pretty much standing there on screen with absolutely no face. At least with Darth Vader, it's the exact opposite effect. He's standing there, you can't physically see his face, but every single motion that he gives, it is showing. It is telling us. For example, here, the best moment in Star Wars history, in my opinion, which is when you see the Emperor shocking the living hell out of Luke. You look at Vader, and everything going on in that moment.
No.
Oh, fuck off. I'm not talking about that Blu-ray bullshit. No. Plus, that's exactly what James Earl Jones ruining it. Now, David Prowse, on the other hand, he is delivering the performance of showing the audience there's a million thoughts going on in this character's head, but he's not actually showing.
Time there. We're calling time there. We're calling time. Write it down. Put it in your closing argument. Write it down. Put it in your closing argument. Keep it in mind. But we're done with the main forum round. Tim, we're gonna start with you for closings whenever you're ready.
Okay, with the performance that Frank Oz put into the Yoda puppet, like I've been saying, yes, it made that movie. It made Empire Strikes Back. But here's the thing. With the body double for Vader, you had a switch in between two famous Chewbacca's in two different movies, and guess what? I couldn't tell the difference with the body movement. I couldn't. It was the same thing. So I think you can replace anybody for that performance, and it'll be fine as a body double for Vader. With Han Solo, I saw progressively down through the movies, it looked like he could care less with each movie from his performance, bringing him in. And Luke at the end of Return of the Jedi, yeah, he had to have a strong performance. I'll give him that. But here's the thing. He wouldn't have got there to that fight to have that moment without the training of, yes, Obi-Wan, but also Yoda. He needed that training, and Frank Oz brought that puppet to life. Work. That's it.
Alrighty, a good closing there by Tim. We're gonna go to Chris for your closing argument when you're ready.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm taking care of a security thing. Sorry.
That's no worries.
Okay, thanks. Okay. What's more impressive when you have a character, when you have an actor that has to give, you know, every single one of their performances where it's all strictly from what you can see, or what's more impressive when you get all of the reactions, that you're feeling all of their feelings, but you're not physically seeing it? When David Prowse actually picks up Ian McDermott and throws him over the pit, deciding that he's going to actually go back to the light side of the Force to save his son. And there is not a single line that James Earl Jones says, fuck that Blu-ray edit, Chance. That is one of the most powerful moments in cinema history. And that's something that wasn't given by James Earl Jones. That was given by David Prowse, who had a lot to work, who had not a whole lot to work with, but made an absolute icon out of this character. Because when people take a look at Darth Vader, they don't talk about they talk about two things: about the look and the voice. And David Prowse was the perfect half of that iconic pair up.
Alrighty, a good closing.
So,
oh, go ahead. If you have something else.
Yeah, just real quick. With Han Solo, or with Harrison Ford, it took Han a little while to get there, because he starts off a little too one note, but that's because of how the character was written. That's not because of the performance necessarily. With Frank Oz, it's a great puppet. It's an absolutely fantastic puppet, but it's also with sorry, just so. Okay, put my phone down. My bad. Sorry, guys. But Frank Oz, great puppet, but the other problem is it only works if Mark Hamill is actually reacting with the puppet correctly, and he did, luckily.
Alrighty, a good closing there by Chris. We're gonna go over to Chance for your closing. Whenever you're ready, Chance, you take it.
Okay, yeah. So the puppet was doing the work than Frank Oz. Yeah, he had a voice role, and I mean, really, that's it. It's just a voice for Frank Oz, and he was literally just doing that, just sitting, sipping some tea, and reading from a script. Didn't take much there. Mark Hamill, you picked Return of the Jedi, which means you were ignoring the first two movies. Where first one, like you said in one of the previous arguments, he was a whiny little bitch, and that was a very grating character. Episode 2, he was bullheaded, not bullheaded, but he was. And that his performance wasn't. Mark Hamill's never the most interesting performance in these movies. What I'm trying to get at. And David Prowse, he is one half of the iconic role, and he's not even the best half. And I will challenge you on that performance aspect. Really, you could take any random tall guy, put him in that suit, would not change. David Prowse brought absolutely nothing unique to that role. Like, that was all in the writing and directing. You could literally pluck off any 6'5" guy off the street, put him in a Darth Vader suit, give him that same direction, and it would be just fine. Han Solo, you could not. Like, you can try and plug and play any other actor in this role, and they did try. They tried Al Pacino, they tried Kurt Russell, they tried Christopher Walken. And really, nothing beats Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford as Han Solo is arguably one of the best performances in Star Wars history because he came in and he made that role his own. Every move he made, everything he said was his move, and he absolutely owned it.
All right, definitely a strong closing there by Chance. Over to Matt to wrap up this question.
All right, look, I love Yoda. Yoda is cool and stuff, but I mean, the performance by Frank Oz isn't really that great when you look at many of the other voices in there. I mean, James Earl Jones as, you know, the voice of Vader is definitely better. And speaking of that, you know, James Earl Jones makes Darth Vader Darth Vader. Yeah, you have one little thing. You can't really tell the emotion. He could have been smiling in that mask and we wouldn't know. That's just what George Lucas and all the writers and the director all have made us think. That's the storytelling. That's not his performance of David Prowler. It's James Earl Jones throughout the movie that made Vader Vader. You could put me in there and you think Darth Vader would be a good villain? Hell no. He would not be a good villain at all. And then with Han Solo, the performance given by Harrison Ford, you know what, you're right. It's one of the better performances in Star Wars history, but it's not the best. You even said that it's not the best because you said it's one of the best performances. We're talking what's the best, not one of the best, the best. You know, Billy D. Williams gives a better performance, and as what, you know, Han Solo is as a character in the sense of smooth talking and all that stuff. With Mark Hamill in Return of the Jedi, it gives you a very emotional performance, especially in the fight with Vader versus Luke 2. It's very emotional, especially when you know, the Emperor's trying to get Luke to go to the light side. He's very conflicted. He's thinking about it. And then also he's turning throughout the fight because Vader is kind of poking at him. You could tell that through the emotion expressed through Hamill's face. You know, you get a completed arc from what the other performances were, and from episode 4 to Jedi, where it was from a whiny little bitch to now a Jedi Master.
Alrighty, good closing there. There's nothing really to fact check. That was a pretty clean round overall. I'm going to toss it over to Henry right away to make a ruling.
Right away.
Yep, that.
Right away.
Just like your argument was cray cray.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I have to, everyone, I'm off. I got it. Anyway. All right. So I think out of all the competitors, Matt started off the strongest because he had the most to work with Luke, given that it's a Star Wars story. But unfortunately, he didn't end as strong as I was hoping. So I was really surprised that he didn't get it. And I think Dohmen had the biggest hill to climb, but unfortunately, people knocked him down with, you know, James Earl Jones over the body. And Tim, I think he did a really good job, but I don't think he just didn't provide enough. So I'm going with Chance on this one. Harrison Ford, he was able to knock down. He was the first one to talk about the voice, and then he was talking about how puppeteering's not that hard. And he just, you know, he said that the line that I liked the most was that Harrison Ford's naturally isn't smooth, so he actually had to act to provide that. And I was really impressed with that argument. So Chance overall got that one.
I would say definitely well fought by all four of you. I thought that was a very, very close one to call. But yeah, Chance is going to take that first question, and he's automatically into round 3. With that, we're going to hop right into the next question of this round. I just want to remind you guys who are arguing that your closing arguments aren't necessarily to bring up all the new points that you just thought of. That's really what the main round is for, is to bring up all your new points. And that goes for all four of you, really. The closing arguments are supposed to be a summary, not another 5 minutes of monologue, just so you know. With that, we're going to go into the second question of round 2, which is: improve the Star Wars prequels by changing only one thing. So what one thing are you changing to improve the prequel trilogy? We're starting with Chris.
Okay, so we can all agree that the prequels are jack-loaded with problems. But the first problem, which in my opinion is the biggest problem of those films, is the script. First things first, George Lucas doesn't write it. Who do you get? The guy who wrote the best Star Wars film of all time. You get Lawrence Kasdan to write all 3 of these films. Why? Because he's going to give these films a sense of humor. And these films need it, given the story that we're going to be telling in these 3 films. You also need a sense of purpose, which Lawrence Kasdan will give that, and you also need the intensity of the drama, which again Kasdan can happily provide.
All right, a good opening there by Chris. Over to Matt for your opening argument.
Okay, just want to make sure I wasn't on mute this time. So, yes, the writing's not good, but I think something that really hurt it, especially in The Phantom Menace, was the Gungans. Their whole storyline was completely pointless. You get rid of the Gungans, you get rid of Jar Jar, that is saving so many people's lives. It makes the movie a lot better. So yeah, Gungans. Just keeping it short.
All righty, keeping it short and sweet there. Over to Tim.
Tim's muted. Tim, you muted.
Nope.
Sorry, I kept that.
Good. No worries.
Sorry.
It's all good.
I would have gone more with. I like the script. I like getting rid of the Gungans because Jar Jar was an idiot. But I go with more recasting. If you would have recasted important roles such as Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker and Natalie Portman as Padme, your performances, I would have gone with recasting.
Recasting is probably a little bit too general. We're looking to change one thing.
Oh,
so I'm going to say pick
okay.
one role to recast.
Okay.
Changing the script, I would say, is one thing. The Gungans as a story like point is one thing, but I'm going to say if you're going with recasting, choose one person to recast.
Okay, let's go with the main one of Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. He was a wet blanket throughout that whole thing. I looked at him. I did not see one part of emotion on that guy's face acting throughout 2 of those movies.
Alrighty, a good opening there from Tim. And then we're
change it at the last second, but yeah.
No, that's right.
I have one thing to ask. Since we're limiting Tim there, I think we should limit Dohmen as well. I think he should either go with the writing or the story when it comes to a script. Because that's also too vague. I think he should pick between writing or story.
I assumed it was script, but I guess Dohmen.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because you can have the same story but different dialogue, like better dialogue, or you can have, overall just a better story. So I mean, I think you need to be specific.
Okay,
that's fair.
So when I say screenplay, literally the story, the overall story of the prequel stays the same. It's just now it's Lawrence Kasdan writing it instead of George Lucas.
Okay.
So Lawrence Kasdan is writing the actual screenplay, the dialogue, those things.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Okay. That's what I figured. But
I know. I just wanted to be clear. Just since we're limiting Tim, I figured it'd be fair, especially for them to counter.
Totally fair. Totally fair. So with that, we're going to go to the main round. Since there's only 3 of you now, I think I'm going to, and we're trying to be a little bit more time efficient, I'm going to go down to 4 minutes. So you guys have all gone through multiple rounds as fighters. So instead of doing 5 minutes, we're going to go 4. So make sure you guys are getting your points in now.
Look, I'm really surprised, Chris, that you went with writing rather than directing. George, yeah, you can have a better script, but that's not going to, make the movie a million times better. George Lucas directing is the final thing. He can do whatever he wants. He can still
no, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have. It doesn't matter if you have fucking. I don't know. Just give me the best character director of all time.
But here's the thing. I will say yes, you could have better dialogue, but you also need a better actor to give you that dialogue. Or what's
Hayden
the use
was
of
great. Hayden was great in the physical performance, from the way that he would give physical expression, especially in this last half of Revenge of the Sith. All of those moments, especially when he's slaughtering the Separatists. Oh my God, that is some of the best acting you will see in those films, because it is all in the body language. It is in the face. Literally, he is menacing. He is pure evil at this fucking point. You see that. You feel that. And when you see his remorse, his regret, when he sheds that one tear, you see that. And you feel it. But of course, remember, he had to say he doesn't like sand, which that's the actual line, by the way. Not he hates it. But of course, that's what makes him terrible. Of course.
And
right?
Because you recast him doesn't mean that it's going to change what we think of Anakin overall. It's the directing. I mean, how can you do a really good job with, just the dialogue and everything when you have a director that lost his touch, obviously? I mean, let's take Star Wars out of it. Everything George Lucas directed after, has not been good at all. So just because you take out Hayden Christensen, who before Star Wars was considered one of the biggest names, as far as young actors go, people who had potential.
Guys, I'm sorry, I have to.
That almost
Hold on.
consider him an Oscar nominee.
Matt. Time. Pause the clock.
Pause. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Time is paused. I don't know how editing is gonna go, Matt, but I forgot.
Oh, that was a waste. I was expecting an important call. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Time is gonna continue. Matt, you can keep talking.
Okay, but as I was saying, with Hayden Christensen, even if you recast him with George Lucas's directing, it does not change the performance overall. You can still have a bad performance. Look at Hayden Christensen before Star Wars. There was people talking about him potentially getting an Oscar nomination for one of his roles. He was considered one of the big, young actors rising up, and then Star Wars hit. And I mean, you could put Leonardo DiCaprio in it, who was in Beaches, and that wasn't a good performance, but we consider him an incredible actor. You put Leo in there as Anakin, it's not going to improve anything at all.
Oh, really? Yeah. Because I remember seeing Hayden in Jumper, and I thought that was horrible.
That was after Star Wars. But Life is in the House, he was fantastic in that film.
Yes.
So no, sorry. Your argument sadly holds no water. Now the Gungans, are they really the worst part of the fan base?
Absolutely.
No.
They're the most annoying thing you could possibly have.
Okay. Sorry. Watto is 100 times worse than the Gungans ever were. Because
you had one Gungan that was a shitstorm of Jar Jar.
And honestly, honestly,
like
just take out Jar Jar out of that.
The Gungan race was perfect. They were a warrior race.
They're awesome.
You had a warrior honor-bound race. Just because you have one bad apple
slapstick humor, that's all they're making.
Anything.
No, that's all that Jar Jar is good for.
They were one of the main allies.
Watch the Clone Wars if you want to see them in actual action, being real badasses and being just the best fucking race beside the Wookiees.
They basically helped change the end of that movie. They helped them break the blockade. They helped them free Naboo.
And you want to know what's awesome? They are a great allegory for racial relations because you have the Naboo, who are obviously racist assholes, and then you have the Gungans, who are the natives, and you actually have at the end of the movie them getting along, which would have been helped with great writing if that was actually more of the angle they were going to go for with the dialogue. And they could have done that because Lawrence Kasdan is one of the best fucking screenwriters of all time.
We've had many
time there. We're out of time. That's time for the main open forum. We're gonna go into closing arguments. Remember, this is a wrap up, not just another time to get all of your extra points in. You can get a couple in there, but make sure you're being mindful of what you're saying. I believe we started with Chris. So Chris, we're gonna go to you for closings.
Lawrence Kasdan is the single greatest writer that this franchise has ever had and never will have. He is single-handedly one of the tightest, one of the most flavorful, and I would say personality-giving writers that a franchise with this expansive of a universe requires. He could have absolutely brought it where George did, and George could have still directed, honestly, because when George knows how to, because George does still know how to get good performances. Just look at Ewan McGregor and Christopher Lee. Both of them give solid performances in those films. And that's thanks to George's direction. Now, just one last little point. You need to have a script that has personality. And Lawrence could have given that. And hey, it could have made the Gungans more tolerable. And it could have made Hayden that much better of an actor if he was saying the right words.
Alrighty, good closing there by Chris. Over to Matt. What you got?
Okay, like I've said before, I don't know why you chose writing instead of directing. Yeah, Lawrence Kasdan, great writer, but that's not going to change the overall film all around. It might improve it a little bit, but it's George still directing. It's his baby. He's going to have final say with whatever. So the writing's not going to change anything. He can add whatever he wants in there because he's George Lucas and everybody was yes men. So of course he's going to do that. So even with the writing, you're still not going to get good performances out of Hayden Christensen with the dialogue. Yeah, I mean, you listen to Ian McGregor and Christopher Lee, that's two people. But still, you didn't listen to many of the other guys that did real bad, like Hayden Christensen, Natalie Portman, who, by the way, Natalie Portman has proven if you have a good director behind her, she can give an Oscar-winning performance. And then let's look at the Gungans, for example. The Gungans, I'm going to go to my point, and then I'll go back to Timothy. With the Gungans, they're the most annoying race ever in there. they honestly ruined Return of the Jedi for me, like as far as the new special editions, whatever it was, Blu-ray, or maybe one before had them in there too. But I was feeling good. I was feeling happy. It's like, okay, I don't mind this ad. And then you have the Gungans. It's like, oh god, it reminded me of the Phantom Menace. These are horrible characters, and it also gave us Jar Jar Binks, which is, I think we all agree, the worst character in Star Wars for sure. So I would do that. I don't remember Tim's. I got bad memory. So yeah.
All right, Tim, for your closing argument, whenever you're ready.
Okay. With bad dialogue, and you went with the Gungans, Matt. The Gungans were a proud warrior race. They helped define the end of that movie. They helped change the outcome. They brought peace to Naboo. Just because you have one bad apple doesn't mean everything else is a shitstorm. That's like having one bad human say humanity ought to just be wiped out of existence.
Although it should.
That's another debate for another time, Chris. But just because you have bad dialogue, you also have to have acting behind it that can prove. Just because you have one good performance and then you get offered the role of a lifetime, and I'm sorry all the way through, blanket. There was hardly any emotion besides one tear. I got no emotion out of Hayden Christensen's performance. And no matter if you change the dialogue, change the directing, as Matt's second point, I guess you could say, you still need strong acting behind it. Another actor with a stronger pedigree and background could have done better with a lot less. It's happened before. There's been plenty of examples of acting stances, but that's it.
Alrighty, a well-fought match by all of you guys. We're going to toss it over to Henry. There wasn't really anything to fact-check there. Everything that was said was clean. It was all correct, so I can just reaffirm that. Henry, for a ruling?
All night, this is the easiest one to go with. Other than saying annoying, Matt didn't really have any reason to really destroy the Gungans, and they also countered that they actually provided some closure at the end. Tim, you actually did a decent job with Hayden, but ultimately Chris got this one because if he changing the script, that helps the Gungans, makes them less annoying, and it provides better opportunity for Hayden Christensen, who's proven that he can act under proper direction and proper writing, and it was the only reason that he doesn't have a career now is because of the writing and because of his performance. And if he had better dialogue, he'd be more memorable. So Chris destroyed that one.
Shocker.
I don't know about no career. He wasn't 90 minutes in heaven. But that's a different story. So with that, we're going to go into the speed round. Matt, Tim, you guys, I believe, have both been here before. So what we're going to do is do the same thing we were doing earlier for Mark and Tim. We're going to do speed round questions. These are not going to count for stats, but they are going to determine who gets into the next round. Alrighty, so your first question. What planet would you like to vacation to?
Coruscant.
Naboo.
All right. The first two that came to my mind when I read this question as well, Coruscant and Naboo. Matt, you said it first. Let me pull up the clock for 30 seconds when you begin.
Look, when you look at Naboo, why would you want to go to Naboo? You have the Gungans there, and you can have them attacking you and stuff. That's not cool and all. But if you go to Coruscant, it's going to be a nice stay. It's going to be relaxing. You can have a good time. You might get royalty. So, yeah.
I hate you all with the speed round.
No, but I mean, Naboo, it's really, I don't know. Fuck it.
And time there, right there. All right. Make sure you guys.
Jesus Christ.
Fight!
Yeah, definitely fight. Fight for it.
I know you guys don't see the little promo where we tell you to fight, just like in movie fights. But
I can
Fight, God damn it!
Is it my turn now, Robert? Please?
Yep, Tim, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you. You want to fight? Here it is. Why would you want to go to a clouded clusterfuck of a planet? It's like going to New York. At least with Naboo, you have scenery, you have country, you have city, you have a nice climate, a nice atmosphere. You might as well be in downtown Japan, clustered with this many people on top of you. At least with Naboo, you have an open environment. You can go to a city, you can go to the country, you can go to the lake. Can you do that at Coruscant? No.
And time. Alrighty, we're gonna go back to Matt for 15 seconds, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll get 15 seconds. Look, how do we know that Coruscant doesn't have lakes? You never know that. Coruscant is a fun place. You can meet people, new people. You get to meet exciting people with Naboo. It's a boring place. I've seen it before. I want to go somewhere new, not somewhere that I've been before. I live by the country. It's boring, okay? I'll tell you that right now.
And time. Tim for 15.
Really? Naboo has a much more scenery, and I'm sorry. Look at any orbital shot of Coruscant. It's a giant industrial-sized planet. Point to me where there is any bodies of water. At least you have scenery with Naboo. You have scenery.
And time there. I would just like to bring up a quick little fact-checking thing. Tim kind of brought it up there in his rebut, but I believe it was in episode 1, I think in Phantom Menace, somebody I remember saying that Coruscant is, the whole planet is a giant city. So
it was all industrialized.
Yeah, Tim kind of brought it up, but not specifically the example from the movie. So I just wanted to point that out, that reference is in the movie. Henry for ruling.
I'm so curious what Henry's going to pick.
So here's the thing. Matt didn't say enough, but what he said was decent. And Tim, he just kind of kept rehashing the same things. I'm actually gonna go with Matt on this one because he brought up the only difference was it said you might get attacked. That's the only difference. You guys pretty much cancel each other out, and that's the only point that I can get. I guess it's a little safer. So I'm surprised because I'm so mad. He only said like 3 things in his first argument, but you guys cancel each other out. I don't know how, but yeah, Matt on that one because it's a little safer.
I'll take that.
And Matt's first thing, he did stop at 11 seconds out of 30.
Yeah, which pisses me off, but.
Yeah, I agree with that, Tim. I just needed one other thing besides there's scenery. I needed one other thing for Naboo.
He kept rehashing the same thing, so it's like, man, you have so much potential.
still a good fight. We're gonna go into the second speed round question. Here goes. Earlier, we've talked about what the worst part of the prequels are. Now we ask, what are the best part of the prequels?
The fight on Mustafar.
What was that, Matt? I heard the Mustafar fight at the end of Revenge of the Sith from Tim. What I get from Matt?
Execute Order 66.
Order 66 with both scenes from Revenge of the Sith. So I don't know who talked first. I heard Tim louder, so I'm going to go to him for 30 seconds first.
You had the huge fight that needed to happen of the story between the failed master, the turned apprentice, a fight that had to happen. You had such great potential, and it was the first real, true Jedi fighting that you saw of a new type of Jedi fighting, I guess you could say. And you had such emotion with the master and the former pupil going at each other.
Time there, over to Matt. 30 seconds, hopefully.
Look, when you look at the fight at the end of Revenge of the Sith between Obi-Wan and Anakin, it's very stale compared to what the movies have built up. There's no emotion. You don't feel anything in there. It's just 2 people swinging their arms around. At least with Execute Order 66, you get the emotion of the fallen Jedi, which is the result, basically, of, Obi-Wan versus Anakin. You don't have Execute Order 66. Why would you have that? Obi-Wan wouldn't be put in the same situation. He wouldn't, find out what's going on and eventually fight Anakin. You gotta have that. It's more emotional. There's nothing really there for.
And time there. Over to Tim. There are 15 seconds.
No emotion. You had a master feeling betrayed by his apprentice, who he lost to the dark side, that you saw going down the road for 3 movies as it was. Order 66, you knew what was going to happen from the history of Star Wars. That's how the Emperor was going to come.
And Matt for 15.
And he knew Obi-Wan versus Anakin was going to happen. What's the difference? The difference is Execute Order 66 actually has emotion that's displayed on screen. When you watch the end fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin, there's no emotion. It's just, sound and effect. That's all it is. There's nothing there. There's nothing meaty to go on. But at least with Execute Order 66...
Time there. Surprised nobody went with Duel of the Fates, but that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would have gone with.
But that's fine. Over to Henry. What's your ruling, man?
It's not just bias because Tim actually said that he was wrong, but yeah, Matt was so wrong saying that there's no emotion in that final fight, because that's nothing but emotion. That's the only saving grace for that fight. So Tim blew him out on that one.
Alrighty, yep, I would agree with that. Also, I heard Matt just say the whole lights and effects and arm swing. I heard that twice, and no other attack, so I would agree with that one. But yeah, I would actually flip those arguments. I thought Order 66 has no emotion, and the Battle on Mustafar has all of the emotion.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
And that's what makes Order 66 darker, because it is no emotion. It's emotionless. Kill him now.
Alrighty. So that means we're going to this final question. The winner goes into the next round against Chris and Chance. And here's the question. Who is the best Jedi warrior in the Star Wars universe?
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'll go Yoda.
Arguably the two best. Here we go. 30 seconds to Tim.
The whole complete saga of Obi-Wan Kenobi, you see a young, brash apprentice molding himself into a master of the Jedi in the prequels to an old mentor to the next generation in the original trilogy. Have great performances from Ewan McGregor and from Alec Guinness with both of those. It is a complete saga, a complete best, and he is one of the best fighters around. He beat Anakin. He beat supposedly the second best
Time there. Over to Matt. 30 seconds.
Now, he may be one of the best fighters, but he's not the best fighter, and that's Yoda. Yoda is the most powerful Jedi. He has a very mysterious background that we all are invested in because of who the character is of Yoda. We know there's 400 years, let's just say, in the past, and we want to know, and that's just because of how good Yoda is in the prequels and also in Empire. He's a saving grace of prequels for at least Phantom Menace for a lot of it. So you get that, and also in Attack of the Clones, when he comes out to fight, that scene, him versus Dooku, was
Time there. We're going to go 15 seconds to Tim.
With Yoda, you have, if he's such the greatest fighter, then he should have been able to defeat Sidious. He never did. Obi-Wan never had the chance, but he won his duel. He fought. He couldn't finish a job.
Time there. Over to Matt. 15 seconds.
Well, I mean, Obi-Wan didn't, beat Sidious, but I mean, they never fought. Yoda was never as powerful as Yoda, and that's explained in Attack of the Clones. At least he didn't get his ass kicked by Dooku. I mean, he caught his lightning. Could Obi-Wan do that? No. He definitely cannot do that.
Time there, Henry.
I'd like to make a quick fact check. Obi-Wan does actually catch Dooku's lightning with his lightsaber.
Thank you.
I meant hand.
Well, once again, it was not brought up.
Yeah, it wasn't brought up. It wasn't brought up, but
also I will.
Point is, I didn't count it as a point for Matt, so that point's null and void. Let's just put it that way. Stricken from the records. This one's tough because neither of you argued the way I would have on this one, because there's easy arguments for both of them. I think we need to do a full judge on this one, because this one's too.
Just you and I are gonna have to then. I know who I would vote.
Let me know, and then maybe that'll help me. That'll help sway me. I'm gonna make the ultimate decision, but tell me what you think.
So based on those arguments, I think both of them had good supports for their own arguments. Both of them had decent attacks against the other person, but I think only one of these two really countered the other person's attack, and I think that was Matt. I think I think Tim's attack against Matt was that he won, Obi-Wan won his duel, and we do see him throughout the full lifespan. But for me personally, Matt said, well, I mean, they never really fought Sidious, so you can't really count that as an attack on my point. Yoda did catch the lightning with his hand. I would lean slightly towards Matt on this one.
Yeah, this one's tough. Yeah.
Ultimately, it's your decision, but I would lean slightly towards Matt.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Matt. Matt said Yoda, and Tim said Obi-Wan, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Just make sure. Yeah. I'm gonna say. I'm actually gonna disagree, because Tim said he had the full arc from the in the original trilogy with how he was a mentor as well on both sides, and Matt didn't really touch on his Jedi training skills for Empire. He just said he was in Empire. So if he just would have said that he trained arguably the best Jedi in Luke, then that would have helped. But he didn't say that. So I'm actually going to go with Tim on this one because he brought up the support of the original, surprisingly.
Alrighty, so Henry is ruling in favor of Matt on that one, which means Matt, you are moving.
Tim.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. My bad. Henry's ruling in favor of Tim on this one, which means Tim is going to be moving on to the main round, the real three-way round. Matt, still a great fighter. Great job today. You had some great arguments. Where can people find you online?
Find me here. That's basically about it. So.
Alrighty, so.
And narrating short films.
New channel. And the team tournament.
Awesome, awesome. Great job there, Matt. So, with that being said, this has been an extremely long video. So, we are actually going to be doing this video in 2 parts. This match is a 2-part video. What you've just seen, this is all of video 1. We are going to be moving over to video 2 soon. So, make sure you guys check out the amazing conclusion of this epic fight in the next video. Can't wait to see you there. Bye.